Hey everyone, I hope you had a great weekend. This is Rob of the Actors Workshop, and once again, you are in the abyss. So, this is our last week of my favorite 50 in 50 years. Um, Kind of bummed, but excited about the different things that I'm coming up with, some different ideas. So, I got a few irons in the fire. Like I said on Friday, this week we'll do Monday, 2018, Wednesday 2019, and I got a pretty good list for Friday of movies I missed and some pretty good ones. So today, another good stack of movies for 2018, and it was kind of tough toward the end of what was number one in my opinion because there are some really good films. And what I do now with Blu-ray because of price is I usually wait for good deals or like a Black Friday or something like that unless I really want it, then I'll buy it on release day. But for the most part, you know, trying to get the deal, right? Trying to get the best bang for the buck, and then being able to watch these movies. So, um, anyways, for 2018, I'm going to start with Bad Times at the El Royale. This is kind of a Pulp Fiction esque type movie, not as good a poor man's Pulp Fiction, if you will, but you got some pretty good actors: Jeff Bridges, John Hamm, Chris Hemsworth, and then Dakota Johnson, who I don't really know what to think. I like her, and then I'm unsure about her. You know what I mean? But I'll give her this. She's a gutsy actress. She takes a lot of risks and has fun in her work. So you got to give her credit for that. But you know, Jeff Bridges, is there anyone as consistent as Jeff Bridges doing what he does? And this is just another one up that alley for him. He's just doing Jeff Bridges, and it makes for a like I said, an interesting film, a Pulp Fiction esque film, and I I enjoyed it. All right. So I had three Marvel options for 2018. I had Avengers: Infinity War, Ant-Man versus Wasp, and then the one I chose, Ant-Man versus Wasp. Haven't seen yet. I haven't watched it yet, so I can't really talk about it. And Infinity War is kind of like what I'm talking about. There's so much, and yes, that's the one where we see the Guardians of the Galaxy in there, and I was introduced to them. But there's just so much going on, so many characters. It's just like blah. Now maybe if I rewatch it, I'll enjoy it more. Who knows? But I went with, for my Marvel choice, Black Panther. I like Chadwick Boseman. We've talked about him in 42. We've talked about him in Draft Day, and now this. He is a guy that is pretty consistent in what he does, and that is pretty straightforward. When you're watching 42, you see Jackie Robinson. When you're watching Draft Day, you're seeing that Ohio State linebacker. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I know he writes it on the piece of paper, and I've seen it a million times. But you think of him as that guy. And then when you watch Black Panther, you think of him as Black Panther. And this is a good, interesting film and kind of unique. And it's one storyline. So it kind of goes back to those early Iron Man, Captain America, Thor type movies where it's just straightforward, straight storyline, brother versus brother type of thing, right? Or, just straightforward. So I enjoyed this the most out of the three I just mentioned, and a pretty good Marvel film. I know you guys have all seen the Marvel, so I don't need to go on and on and on about it. But it's worth the mention. Next up is Creed 2. Michael B. Jordan, who also was in Black Panther, but I think his performance in Creed is much better. And we talked about Stallone the other day milking a franchise. So what does he do for Creed 2? He brings back Drago. And we have Drago's son. And now we have the revenge or the feeling of, Drago killed Apollo. Now you have, Apollo's son versus Drago's son. And there you have it, milking it. I wouldn't be surprised if Creed 3 is he's fighting Clubber's kid. You know what I mean? It's just, that's what Stallone does, and he gets the most out of the franchise. And surprisingly, the movie is really good. It would have been nice for a different ending, in my opinion. The ending was typical, but Stallone knows how to do it, and they make a pretty good movie out of it because of it. All right, so next up, The Commuter. Liam Neeson doing Liam Neeson on a train. We've gone over this a million times, it seems like, in the last couple weeks. how I feel about movies on trains. I just love them. I like the older ones. I like the newer ones. I like the comedies. I like them all. This is another one on a train. And in the Liam Neeson formula, he's a really terrific actor. You give me all that, the action, the adventure, the thriller, and it makes for a pretty good film. I know some people didn't like this movie, but I liked it better than Nonstop. I liked it better than The Gray. Like I said, it was an enjoyable film, and it's typical Liam Neeson. All right. Comedy. Game Night. Who doesn't love Jason Bateman and who doesn't love Rachel McAdams? You put them together in a comedy, and it's pretty fun. It kind of reminded me of a comedic version of The Game with Michael Douglas and Sean Penn. That one's a little bit more serious and a really strong film, in my opinion. This one kind of had a feel kind of like that, but more on the comedy side. And like I said, Jason Bateman just is so good at doing Jason Bateman. You know, the other night I was watching Horrible Bosses, which I really don't like. I think the guy, what's his name, Charlie Day, with that acty high voice. It's so annoying. But then there's Sudeikis and especially Jason Bateman just doing them, and Jennifer Aniston for that point, just doing them straightforward. Even though they're getting that bad acting around them, they're able to use what they use and do them. And Rachel McAdams is really consistent at doing her as well. And you have the two of them, and it just makes for a fun comedy. I really did like this movie. Another comedy, I'm going to skip here and jump to another comedy since we're on that. Tag, based on a true story. I think this movie's hilarious. It's a lot of fun. You know how I like John Hamm. He does a really good job. And then I also like, I'm trying to think of his name. Well, like Jeremy Renner. You know, we've talked about him with, The Bourne Legacy and, of course, his Hawkeye, etc. But the guy from New Girl, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I think he's really funny as the stoner guy in here. And for me, he's my favorite with his banter with John Hamm as they're chasing the same girl. And it just makes for good comedy. I'm not a big Ed Helms fan, but I think he's good in this. And then you have Isla Fisher, and it's just a good cast. They're funny together. It's a fun movie, and it's one that you'll watch a few times because there are some good funny moments in it that kind of just stand the test of time. And so some comedies you'll watch it and then see the comedy, and it's like, okay, I've seen it, it's done. This one has some good stuff in it. So does Game Night. So those are ones that I'll revisit because I enjoy the actors and I enjoy the comedy. Kind of shifting gears here. A Quiet Place, Emily Blunt, John Krasinski. I think this is a John Krasinski film, as a matter of fact. If you ever want to talk about acting, and we always talk about behavior, for those who are not in acting class or don't understand acting per se, acting is about behavior. It's not about words. It's not about acting. It's about behavior. And this movie really magnifies behavior because there's no talking in it. There's a small little scene where the dad and the son have that conversation underneath the waterfall where the creatures can't hear them. But other than that, it is literally a silent film. And just like the days of the silent films with Chaplin or movies like Nosferatu and in the Phantom of the Opera, there were silent films. Behavior carried those films. A Quiet Place is that movie, and I just think it's terrific. It's a great kind of suspense horror film, and I'm excited to hear that Quiet Place 2 is in the works. So if you haven't seen this, it's well worth a watch. All right. We have a continuous theme of certain actors: Liam Neeson, Denzel, the one who's up after this. Equalizer 2. We all know that Equalizer 1 was really good. Equalizer 2 was really good as well. Not as good as 1, I think, and I think partly because 1, there was kind of surprises on how he does things and on the behavior, etc. Now you're expecting it in this, but the storyline is really cool, and he's typical badass Denzel, and it just works out really, really well. Follows that formula. It's enjoyable, and for a sequel, it's right up there. A really strong film, in my opinion. All right, the third one on this, formula: Mission Impossible Fallout, Tom Cruise, Rebecca Ferguson, Alec Baldwin. Henry Cavill does a good job, or is it Cavill? as the villain in this. I'm not a big fan of him as Superman. He was okay in Man of Steel, but the other ones, but I thought he was really did a good job in this film. And I like I said, the last one is connected to this one, so the where the story ends, this one continues in a sense, and it's really cool. And once again, Tom Cruise doing Tom Cruise, Rebecca Ferguson back with her role, Ving Rhames, we can go on and on. Just a really, really good action thriller movie. And a cool thing about this, and you can see it in the movie, is the scene where Tom Cruise is jumping buildings, and the one where he actually hits the side, you can see him break his foot or his ankle. He really did do that, and then they had to wait till it healed to pick up and do the rest of the scene. But in the movie, you see the actual part where he breaks his foot, ankle, whatever, leg, real moments, and it's captured on film and left in the film for the moments. And when he first gets up in the first part, you kind of see a limp, and then they kind of pick up with him running once he healed. But Tom Cruise is not afraid to do his own stunts. He's not afraid to make it as real and as believable as possible. And that scene in this move out is evidence of that. All right. Another movie that is fantastic. Unfortunately, there's 3 movies, in my opinion, that are ahead of this. But Bohemian Rhapsody is just a terrific film. It's a great story about Queen. They all just do a phenomenal job portraying the roles, right? Really knowing the instruments, really, and it helps when you have some of the band members working with you. We talked about that in The Doors. We talked about that with, Jamie Foxx working with Ray Charles. And, when you get that firsthand experience with the musicians themselves and you can make it look as real as possible, it's pretty cool. And we know the story. And it's still just so powerful and so strong. And a quick tidbit, Ben Hardy, who plays Roger Taylor, when he went in and auditioned, they really liked him, thought he looked like Roger Taylor, etc. And they asked him if he knew how to play drums, and he's like, yeah, I know how to play drums, but he didn't. We talk about all the time. Tell them what they need to hear and then figure it out, because they already liked him. They already wanted him. So it was pretty easy for them to go, okay, great. He knows how to play drums. He's the guy. And then he had to figure out how to play drums. And it's funny because Brian May and Roger Taylor, telling the story on the making of, laugh about it. But we talk about as actors all the time. We're salesmen. Tell them what they want to hear and worry about it later. They're not going to fire you. They're going to fix it, right? If they like you and you're the one, do what you got to do. And that's what he did. The other thing cool about it is, if you can see right here, they actually did the full Live Aid performance. And in the movie, you get cuts of it, some of the songs. But as a bonus, you get the full Live Aid concert with them doing it. And it's excellent. It's just, for me, that's why I bought this. I had the viewer through, the SAG Awards. I had seen it. But I bought that purely for that, and it's just great to have and own, because it's really cool to see them play and do the whole Live Aid performance shot for shot. It's pretty awesome. Pretty talented guys. All right, down to my final 3. These could be really interchangeable, especially the last 2, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Deadpool 2. A lot of people think that Deadpool 2 is better than Deadpool 1. Like I just said earlier with Equalizer, I like the originals always the best. That's the way they were made to be. But this is a super cool sequel, and there's a lot you can do with it. It's almost like you can just continue on and just go with stories, kind of like a Mission Impossible, kind of like a Bourne, kind of like a Bond, because he just does the Deadpool Ryan Reynolds thing. And you just put different villains and stuff in it, and it works. And it just makes for a pretty cool movie series. And I'm hoping they do some more. But this one's just as good and funny as the first one, just different. So if I had to pick, I'd still go with the first one. But this was a really good, strong follow-up. All right. So it comes down to these last 2. So what I did for these 2 was, once again, I went back to which one would I watch the most. I actually think the runner-up I like a little bit better as a film, but the one that ended up winning out, I watch more. So it could be a tie, but you know, it is what it is. So my runner-up is going to be Solo. Um, Alden Ehrenreich does an amazing job as the young Han Solo. What shoes to fill to have to make people believe they're watching a young Han Solo, not only a young Han Solo, but a young Harrison Ford. And I just thought he did a great job. He has that kind of quick wit. He kind of has that sass to him. And I thought he did a phenomenal job. I was really, really concerned going into this movie, but it was one I saw on a plane. Shoot, I'll give it a shot. Loved it. Bought on Blu-ray. Watched again. Just loved the film. I also think Daniel Glover does an amazing job as Donald Glover. Excuse me. That's what I was looking for. As the young Lando Calrissian, and that's another one. Not as prominent as Han Solo, but still pretty prominent. And he does a really good job. And you know, Woody Harrelson. You know, I like Woody Harrelson, but why cast a name? Why not just cast somebody that could be that role? And I think sometimes they get caught up with, well, we need a star name with these actors that are not as big in names, and I think it's a trap at times. But he's fine. But really, to me, it's about Han and Lando and how they do back and forth, and it's fantastic. Both guys stepped up, did a great job. They deserve a lot of props. It's really tough to do. Yeah, check it out. It's a really good movie. I thought Rogue One and Solo are some of the best Star Wars ever made. I really do. All right. So number one, and I actually am going to show one more after this, but the reason I saved it to last is because of the boxing of it. So anyways, number one for 2018 is Ready Player One. I mean, I grew up in the 80s. The pop culture is off the charts. And every time I watch this, there's something new I'm seeing, there's something new I'm discovering, some reference. Oh, yeah, I didn't hear that last time or whatever. All of it is super cool. The acting is fine. This is a great example of you don't need a bunch of big name actors. The story carries itself. And I just think it's really well done. It's really well shot. Like I said, the pop culture and all the things around it is so, so great. Now, the one thing I'm going to say, and this is just a personal thing, in the book, there is a full Rush 2112 level that they did not use in the movie, and I'm a little upset about that. I understand why they went with levels that people probably know and realize more in just general knowledge, whereas the Rush level would be more for Rush purists, but the author was definitely a Rush fan, and so you'll see a Rush t-shirt or poster or something throughout the movie, which I think is super cool. But it would have been neat to see that 2112 level. In any case, at least they're referenced. Super cool, super great movie. I know most of you have probably seen it, but if you have not, it's a must-watch as a Solo. Okay, so that's my number one for 2018. The one I wanted to show you that I really enjoyed that came out in 2018 was the reboot of Halloween. And the reason that I'm showing it to you is I got this awesome steel book, and the cover art is just ridiculously cool. I'm not a big steelbook guy. I don't love them. Let's see if I can. The back, I mean, just so simple. Typical Halloween, and like I said, the front. Not a huge steelbook fan, but I got that one because the artwork was so nice. And I got a pretty good deal on it when it came out. But I liked the reboot. I liked that they tried to continue it from the original Halloween. It would have been nice because the first two Halloweens were kind of connected back in the day, that they made this a third Halloween, because Halloween 3 had nothing to do with Michael Myers. That's kind of the outlier of the series. It's called The Season of the Witch because John Carpenter had other ideas when it came to what he was going to do. He was going to do a couple Halloween movies, and he was going to do a movie about the Season of the Witch, and then a movie about ghosts and so on. So he had plans around this idea, but when Season of the Witch didn't work out the way he thought, they moved on, and eventually they started redoing the Halloween 4 with Michael Myers, the Return of Michael Myers, whatever it's called. So 1 and 2 were connected, and so the one that was really missing was that 3, and it would have been nice if this was considered that fill in the blank 3. but instead they said it was a direct sequel 40 years later from the original. And then, you know, we got Halloween Kills coming up, got postponed for a year, which means Halloween Ends is postponed for a year after that. So we'll see where these other two go, but I really enjoyed it, and I think it's great, and it's a cool steelbook. All right, on the music side, real quick, Vernie Barricade, he's the bass player of Overkill, also does Bronx Casket Company solo album he did. Super cool cover. It's like his hand is the face. It's pretty cool. Pretty talented guy. Plays bass, sings, does a lot of things. Wanted to give him some props and point it out. Within Temptation, Resist. We talked about Within Temptation before. Sharon Denadel. She's phenomenal on vocals. This is one of those bands. It's like a hard rock band with a female singer, and her voice is just awesome. She also released a solo album in 2018 called Indigo. Hard to find, but super cool. I really enjoy her voice and I enjoy her work. Yeah, I think she's really, really strong. But number one for 2018 goes Prequelle. And what's cool, I don't know if you can see it here, it's kind of a 3D cover. I have the digipack as well that came free when I purchased some concert tickets. But I also got the jewel case because it had the hologram type cover, which is super cool. So many different lyric contents in this, but some highlights: Rats, Faith, Dance Macabre, Life Eternal. What is the other one? Witch Image. Those are some really good highlights of this album. And like I've said with other Ghost records, the sound changes very drastically per album, so you get different sounds. You still hear Ghost, but very different. And this one's a little bit more kind of poppy to it, in my opinion, kind of more of a radio-friendly, hard rock and roll sound to it. An easy listen, has a fun theme throughout, and I did enjoy it. It's really, really strong, and that's why all four of their albums have been number one for their respective years, which is not easy to do. So, you know, if you get a chance to listen to Prequelle, give it a shot. It's very different than the other stuff. So that's it for 2018. Number one, Ghost. And then on the Blu-ray side, Ready Player One. Once again, I'm enjoying the comments. I love hearing your guys' list or movies I may have missed, etc. I also appreciate you guys forwarding these around to other people and getting more people involved. Looking forward to Wednesday with 2019 to conclude, you know, the first 50 years. And then, like I said, on Friday, we will, you know, do what I missed. But we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Have a great rest of your Monday and Tuesday, and we'll see you then.